Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Khalil Reynolds. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, says there's been positive feedback from Jamaicans who visited Trinidad and Tobago since the government's intervention. She says many factors are behind the improvements in the relationship between the two nations. The minister was speaking at the ministry's first quarterly press briefing today. Anthony Morgan reports.
Foreign Affairs Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith says more Jamaicans are now being granted entry to Trinidad and Tobago. She says the number of Jamaicans being sent back home after being denied entry has decreased by some 64%.
Well, I must admit that there would be a bit of speculation about that. We think it's a confluence of different elements. So on one hand, we think it's people becoming more aware of the issues, more aware of how responsible they have to be about when they travel. They need to be less informal about it. But we also believe that it's positive actions on behalf of the Trinidadian government to not only train their staff, and I believe they did 2 significant training sessions, one in July and one in September, that allow for a different approach.
She says the talks between both governments also promoted further positivity.
We believe that the state visit that took place between Prime Minister Rowley and Prime Minister Holness, the Trinidad delegation's presence here and the positive messages which they took back have created a level of positivity between our two countries that have changed attitudes at Piarco and in the broader business sector, as a matter of fact, between Jamaica and Trinidad.
The minister says the government of Trinidad and Tobago has also done a good job in developing a comfortable space at the Piarco International Airport for individuals who've been denied entry.
We've had reducing numbers, I've not had any complaints. We know that they've gone so far as to install Wi-Fi to ensure that there is access and communication with persons outside. There's coffee and tea. There are bathroom facilities within the area, so there's no concern if you recall some of the specifics of the complaints before. The seating is comfortable, really quite comfortable, and we're pleased with them.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Cabinet has approved the sale of the Rooms Hotel property in Ocho Rios. This was among the approvals announced at the first post-cabinet press briefing for 2017 held at the office of the Prime Minister this morning. Anthony Morgan was there.
Information Minister Senator Roel Reid says Cabinet has given the go-ahead for the sale of the Rooms Hotel property in Ocho Rios, along with measures to operationalize the special economic zone regime.
As part of this process, all free zone files are to be transferred from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Approval was also granted for an audit of all existing free zone entities in order to validate their free zone status. Thirdly, Cabinet also approved the sale of the Rooms Hotel property in Ocho Rios to Ocho Rios St. Anne by the Urban Development Corporation to Puerto Caribe Properties for US $7.2 million.
Senator Reid says a bill was also given the go-ahead to be tabled in Parliament by the Minister of Local Government, looking at the relationship between local government city municipalities and municipal corporations.
Specific consideration are to be given to 1. How boundaries of the city municipality are to be altered. 2. That councillors elected to a city municipality within a parish shall not sit on the municipal corporation of the parish. 3rd, amendment of the Local Government Act of 2016 and the Public Health Act of 1985 to designate a city municipality as the local board of health for its jurisdiction. And 4thly, amendment of the Local Government Financing and Financial Management Act of 2016.
The minister says there are also other physical changes that will be made in terms of local governance.
Cabinet also approved the relocation of the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, the offices of the Board of Supervision, and the headquarters of the Jamaica Fire Brigade to 61 Hagley Park Road, Kingston 10.
Meanwhile, Minister Reid says Cabinet also gave approvals for other matters to be referred to Parliament for consideration, including the allocation of close to $200 million for emergency road repairs in St. Thomas.
The damage to the road network and associated structures due to flood rains over the period of May 23rd to the 31st of 2016, and that there be an allocation of $195,139,000 to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation for urgent restoration or restorative roadworks across the parish of St. Thomas, occasioned by the heavy rains.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
And a signing ceremony also took place at today's post-cabinet press briefing. Minister of Tourism Ed Bartlett, Senator Ruel Reid, and Professor Donald Hawkins, who Minister Bartlett describes as one of the world's leading tourism academics, signed an MOU to establish the island's first school of hospitality. Here's more.
Minister Bartlett says Jamaica's first school of hospitality will be primarily focused on the middle and upper levels of the industry.
We think, Minister, that hard takes good plus a number of private entities with the entry levels. But the middle and the upper levels is really where we want to go, because the ownership of tourism is not just in terms of the financial control. It is also about the people control. And the people control must mean that we are managing the industry from top to bottom. And to enable this, we must train, train, and train.
He says a hotel will be built as part of the institute so that students will have more practical experience.
So what we will be doing is we'll be building out a laboratory and a school. So the hotel that will attend will be the laboratory, and then the school will be for the level of formal training that may be required. The focus of the institution, however, will be heavily on hands-on. So we will be training for competence as well as for pedagogic skills.
Minister Bartlett also announced that there will be the introduction of the first Institute for Craft Development in partnership with the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts.
And that will be established this year in Ocherius area of St. Anne. Running along with that will also be the construction of the first 2 artisan villages. So what we are doing is to create the capacity to expand the range and diversity of indigenous products.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
And still to come, IDB signs procurement deal with the government. The details after the break. Welcome back. The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, says it has confidence in Jamaica's procurement system, and that's why all projects it finances will be procured through the system. The IDB signed the agreement with the government today. Andrew Laidley reports.
The IDB now has partial use of the national procurement system for the projects it finances in Jamaica. IDB Caribbean Country General Manager Mrs. Therese Turner-Jones says the bank is pleased with how Jamaica's procurement system is operated.
Based on the IDB's confidence in the government of Jamaica's public procurement system, we're looking to sign an agreement to use Jamaica's public procurement system and policies to govern the shopping and price comparison procurement processes under IDB-financed operations. This means that from now on, procurement can be undertaken by executing agencies using the government's procurement guidelines instead of the IDB's.
She says this is a milestone achievement for both the IDB and the government.
This is quite a significant step and a big deal for both the IDB and the government of Jamaica, since it indicates that Jamaica has made several significant strides in modernizing its public procurement processes, and therefore only one set of rules will apply as it pertains to procurement for IDB-funded projects.
Mrs. Turner-Jones says the signing is the first of its kind between the IDB and any Caribbean country in this region.
This is also the first time that the IDB is signing such an agreement in this region in the Caribbean. So, again, Jamaica is blazing a positive trail by taking the necessary steps to modernize its public procurement system in terms of the use of ICT, that's using technology, and the development of an advanced system of regulation and supervision.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Lately.
Science, Energy and Technology Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says he will be introducing licenses for electricity power wheeling soon. Wheeling will allow Jamaicans who generate excess electricity in one location to be able to use the credit obtained from the JPS at another site. Minister Wheatley says it will be useful to persons with more than one property, as they will be able to use the credit from excess electricity generated at one area to offset the bill for the other location. The minister says in order to obtain a license for electricity power wheeling, the individual must be a registered customer of the JPS, a registered owner of the property, or have written permission from the owner where the electricity generation plant will be constructed. They must also provide a certified line diagram of the proposed renewable energy system or non-renewable system, among other things. Dr. Wheatley says the JPS will also need to carry out its own inspections as well as install a different type of meter. Meanwhile, the minister says there has been great interest in net billing, with an average of 30 licenses granted per month. Net billing allows JPS customers who generate electricity from renewable sources for personal use to sell the excess energy to the national grid. Recently, the ministry announced that it was taking over the granting of licenses for net billing, electricity power wheeling, as well as any auxiliary system that seeks to generate electricity that can be supplied to the grid. Minister of Finance and the Public Service Audley Shaw tabled the first supplementary estimates for the 2016-17 financial year in the House of Representatives yesterday. The figures show that the budget has been revised upwards from $579.93 billion to $592.74 billion. That's an increase of $12.8 billion. The estimates show an increase in the recurrent housekeeping expenses from $459.37 billion to $463.5 billion, while capital development spending moved from $120 billion to $129. The Ministries of National Security, Health, Economic Growth and Job Creation, and Transport and Mining received increases in their allocations. Members of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, PAAC, deliberated the supplementary estimates on Wednesday. The estimates will then be debated in the House of Representatives next week, Tuesday, for approval. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Audley Shaw is clarifying the capital expenditure amount for national security today, following what he called misleading information arising from his supplementary estimates presentation in Parliament. Andrew Lately reports.
Audley Shaw says the government has had to cut back on the capital expenditure for some projects, but he pointed out that national security is not one of them.
If capital expenditure that was allocated to certain things that you realize for any number of reasons that it won't happen, then you cut back in the supplementary. And then there are other areas. In the case of the Ministry of National Security, we have been able to add some $2.7 billion.
The minister claimed that information being circulated regarding the estimated capital expenditure for national security also needed some clarification.
Incidentally, the news media is in fact incorrectly reporting that an additional 5.5, even TV stations said 6 billion additional for the security. Is not accurate. The accurate increase is actually $2.7 billion. But that's a classic case where we're able to shift capital expenditure from some areas that the pace of expenditure wasn't taking place so fast. And we were able to move $2.7 billion to the Ministry of National Security.
In the meantime, Minister Shaw says capital expenditure for national security is also being increased to accommodate 2 new vessels which will help to improve border patrol for the country.
Among the main features of that are some communication equipment to increase the capacity of the force. There are 2 vessels actually on the high seas right now. Will shortly be in Jamaica to be commissioned as part of the National Security Border Protection Program. And those are part of the reasons for that additional expenditure in this fiscal year.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Lately.
Stay with us. Regional and international stories are after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. The Bermuda Tourism Authority has started a business service standard scheme where mystery shoppers check up on businesses to see if they're meeting new national service standards for hospitality and customer service. The Tourism Authority says the move is expected to assess businesses on 5 areas of service, which include welcoming, engaging, delivery, promoting, and accountability. Businesses which meet or surpass the required score will be given a certification seal that can be used on all marketing and promotional materials, including advertising, signage, and social media. The certificates will be dated for the relevant year and will be renewed annually if a business continues to meet the assessment threshold as scored by trained mystery shoppers. The Bermuda Tourism Authority, BTA, says the standards are not arbitrary, noting that it's taken a year for the BTA and tourism stakeholders to identify important areas that can make all the difference to a visitor seeking a sense of value and a feel-good experience while in Bermuda. Volkswagen confirmed yesterday that it has negotiated a $4.3 billion draft settlement with U.S. regulators to resolve its diesel emissions troubles. Ryan Brooks reports.
A multi-billion-dollar fine and a guilty plea from Volkswagen as it tries to restore its tarnished global brand. The German car maker confirming it's reached a draft settlement in the U.S. over its 2015 diesel emissions scandal, negotiating a $4.3 billion draft settlement with U.S. regulators and planning to plead guilty to criminal misconduct. That could come as early as Wednesday. VW says along with the fine, its diesel costs will exceed the nearly 18.2 billion euros it's set aside to handle the problem. The emissions scandal already making headlines this week when VW executive Oliver Schmidt appeared in court in Miami, charged with fraud and conspiracy by not disclosing a cheating device used to rig U.S. diesel emissions tests. Numerous other court cases loom, VW facing unresolved lawsuits from U.S. investors in about 20 U.S. states. The bumpy road continuing in the UK with a law firm on the prowl for compensation for British drivers. The scandal seemingly not worrying buyers, though, VW Group announcing Tuesday record sales in 2016.
Italy's constitutional court has rejected a bid by the country's biggest labor union to hold a referendum on a jobs market reform that eased the process of firing workers. Jacob Greaves reports.
A sigh of relief for Italy's new government, the country's constitutional court rejecting a bid by Italy's largest labour union to hold a referendum on part of a jobs market reform that made it easier to fire workers. When Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni took office in December, he pledged to continue the work started by his predecessor, Matteo Renzi. His 2015 Jobs Act and constitutional reform were flagship projects in an attempt to revive the Eurozone's most sluggish economy. Big businesses had welcomed the labour reform, which scrapped a rule that gave people fired from large private sector companies the right to be rehired. The CGIL union, which rallied against most aspects of the reform from the start, asked the court to approve a vote on reintroducing the rule and extending it to smaller companies. Italy has one of the lowest numbers of people in work in the Eurozone. Almost 40% of 15 to 24-year-olds are unemployed. Renzi hoped that making firing easier would prompt firms to hire, but there's been no boost to the labour market just yet.
Thailand remains on alert after floods killed at least 25 people. 11 provinces have been warned there could be more heavy rain in the south of the country. There's now concern about the economic impact, particularly on the rubber industry. Al Jazeera's Wayne Hay reports.
The last year has been one to forget for rubber farmers in southern Thailand. They've seen prices plummet, experienced drought, and now 2 major floods in just over a month. Thailand is the largest producer of natural rubber in the world. Farmers are unsure how they'll get through this latest disaster.
We have been suffering since last year with severe drought and even wildfires. By the time the rain came, the price had dropped sharply. Soon after that, we were hit hard by flooding in December, which we had barely recovered from before this bigger flood came.
There are still warnings in place for many areas, but some are beginning to clean up as the rain eases and the water slowly recedes. This may be the worst in decades, but parts of southern Thailand flood every year. The people have grown used to it. They have no choice. They've seen governments come and go without offering any long-term solutions to the problem. One of the current military government's short-term ideas is to use boats to try to increase the flow of water to the ocean. It seems unusual to place them near a river mouth rather than further upstream, but the Navy says they work.
The ship thruster works like a water jet or a pump. The water is pumped into the ship thruster and is pushed out at speeds 3 times faster than normal. They're designed to speed up drainage.
Despite that, it'll be some time before many people are able to return home. Thousands have relocated themselves and their stock to nearby roads, the only dry land in the area. The government says more than 1 million people are now affected by this disaster. Ultimately, there will also be an effect on the economy, which was already being held back by an underperforming agricultural sector. There is some good news for the region. A cut in rubber production will help increase prices. But the effect of that will take a long time to be felt. And for now, people are having trouble simply seeing beyond the floods. Wayne Hay, Al Jazeera, Nakhon Si Thammarat, Thailand.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 38 stocks traded today, of which 17 advanced, 17 declined, and 4 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 1,374 points to close at 193,296. The junior index advanced by 7 points to close at 2,723. Over 55 million units traded, valued at more than $75 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the U.S. dollar market, over 36,000 units traded, valued at over $38,000 US dollars. Cable and wireless, with over 51 million units changing hands, accounted for 92% of market volume. Lasco Manufacturing was second, with over 2 million units trading. JMMB Group accounted for over 331,000 units, amounting to 0.6% of market volume. Caribbean Cream was the top advancer, up 68 cents to close at $8.49, followed by Caribbean Producers up 30 cents to close at $3.75, and General Accident Insurance Company up 18 cents to close at $3.18. The main decliners were Derimon Trading Company, down 63 cents to close at $5.57, followed by Radio Jamaica, losing 9 cents to close at $1.26, and Honeybun down 38 cents to close at $5.52. And that's all the news for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. Foreign Affairs Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith says more Jamaicans are now being granted entry to Trinidad and Tobago. She says the number of Jamaicans being sent back home after being denied entry has decreased by some 64%. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Pleasant viewing.